History for Granite, our favorite pyramid creator. And honestly, one of the most knowledgeable people in the entire world about pyramids. He posted a new video. He hasn't posted in 4 months. This has been a video long time in the making. Where are the Pyramid Kings buried?
Please subscribe.
Perfect.
And together, we'll uncover secrets from the past.
Okay.
Written in stone.
Let's see this.
The 3 largest pyramids built by Pharaoh Snefru have confounded explorers and researchers since antiquity. At first, it was unknown who built these mighty pyramids, as history had long forgotten their origin. Later, the mystery deepened when archaeology determined Snefru was the only pharaoh that could be associated with all 3 pyramids, and thus likely constructed all of them during his reign.
Yeah, so what he's saying here is that why would one pharaoh have 3 pyramids for himself? Why build 3 pyramids? You can see 2 of them here. This is the red pyramid in front, the bent pyramid in the back. Standard narrative has been that the first one had a failed angle. It goes like this, and then it bends at the top. However, it seems to be very much by design because the top half of the bent pyramid has the same angle of incline as the entire red pyramid. So it was definitely a design choice, not a structural failure. But it doesn't look like the pyramid shape we recognize, so we consider it a failure. Also, the third pyramid he built is in a different location, at Maidum, and that one has been griefed completely. Yeah, it does not look like a pyramid anymore because there is a lot of farmland nearby and they've taken the stones off the pyramid for construction work. So this is the pyramid, what it looks like now. But you can see the inner core of it, built in steps. And then there would be like the classic pyramid shape outside of it. Anyway, why does one pharaoh have 3 pyramids?
Building 3 enormous pyramids seems highly illogical. After all, a king only needs 1 pyramid to be buried within,
Exactly
so why
this.
go to such trouble
Exactly
as
this.
to build 3 of them? But there is an enormous problem with designating any of Snefru's pyramids as a burial location. The problem is that none of the pyramids have any traces of a stone sarcophagus.
And this deeply annoys Egyptologists. It would be so nice if there was a sarcophagus, a casket. The argument goes that this room over here, it's the furthest inside the Red Pyramid. They're arguing that the pharaoh was buried there, but that looters came up there, completely griefed the sarcophagus, and dug up the entire floor to look for more treasure. But History for Granite recently made a video where he argued that this room wasn't griefed. The builders of the pyramid never finished this room. They were actually like updating the pyramid. They were trying to smoothen out the walls more and build up the floor, but they never got around to finishing the job.
But if none of Snefru's pyramids were used for his burial, what other location could possibly be suitable for such a powerful king? In fact, there is a highly conspicuous tomb sitting in plain sight that seems only fit for an individual of the highest rank in Egyptian society. This tomb, known as Mastaba 17, sits as close as possible to the Maidum Pyramid, just beyond its enclosure wall on the northeast side.
It really doesn't look good, but a mastaba is the burial structures they built before pyramids. And inside there would be a lot of chambers with different things you need for the afterlife. So like you would have a bunch of dead animals and a bunch of wine and a bunch of food. And the buried person would have all that there because they would think they would bring that with them to the afterlife.
However, the large size of Mastaba 17 isn't what makes the tomb distinct.
It's massive, honestly.
Rather, it is the architecture and location which elevates it to a status that may only be fit for a king. A close look at this tomb reveals how much it stands out even compared to the other mighty mastabas of its era. This is the earliest granite sarcophagus known, and the only one to predate the Giza necropolis.
Yeah, guys, they went crazy for granite. If you had granite in a time of copper tools, this was an enormous amount of work and also thus very hard to grief, because to grief it, you would have to go through the same very tedious work of chiseling like millimeters at a time of granite. Plus it's heavy, you can't really lift the lid, can't really grief it.
The other mastabas at Maidum used wooden sarcophagi, including that of Nefermat, who would have been the highest.
I'm starting to see where this is going, you know? So we have 3 pyramids without a sarcophagus, without a burial chest in them. And we have right next to one, a granite sarcophagus in a time where there's only wooden ones in those old tombs.
The only person above a vizier in Old Kingdom Egypt was a pharaoh, and thus it seems Snefru would be the only person fit for such a sarcophagus. It's thicker and heavier than the Great Pyramid sarcophagus, and it shows the highest level of craftsmanship. So conspicuous is...
I mean, this is pristine. For stoneworking for back then, guys, this is really clean.
One could make a strong case that Mastaba 17 was the most secure mastaba ever built in the Old Kingdom. Perhaps the simplest reason for this is it had no entrance constructed to reach its chambers.
What?
The occupant must have died before construction or at the very start of it, because after the chambers were roofed over, there was no way to gain entrance without tunneling all the way through.
Oh, this is a great argument. So, okay, listen to the argument, right? If they built the structure before the person died, they would need to have a tunnel ready to carry the person inside, right? But if the person is already dead before it's being built, you don't have to create a tunnel or any remnants of what would have been a tunnel. Therefore, you just dig a hole in the ground, place a sarcophagus, place the roof, and then build a structure over it. Yeah.
The longer north to south passage inside Mastaba 17 is also superfluous in that the southern section
Superfluous. I gotta start using this word. Unnecessary? No. Superfluous. Isn't the word superfluous a bit superfluous? Okay.
2 passages leading towards a burial chamber that didn't need any passages at all. The intended
Bro, if he's able to connect the dots somehow and say that you can see some pattern like this in other structures, or like, oh, this shows how and why. So, he's going to connect this. He's not telling us all, oh, these passages are important. Like, he's going to connect this somehow.
Ultimately, it is the timing for the construction of Mastaba 17 that offers the strongest evidence Snefru was its likely occupant.
All right, hit us with it.
The traditional Egyptology story is that Snefru built a stepped pyramid here at Meidum first, and then for reasons unknown, decided to move his necropolis to Darshur with the construction of the bent and red pyramids. But Snefru never abandoned Meidum, and we can be confident this was never his intention because his sons and elites did not move their tombs to Darshur, but instead continued to build upon their mastabas at Meidum. We know...
Right, like, so he's saying Mastaba 17 is the one he suspects that Snefru was buried in. Mastaba 16 is where his family is buried. If he abandoned this place, why the hell is he... Why would his... Then they would be buried at Darshur instead.
Why would the most powerful elites of society not instead rebuild at Darshur if it was to be the royal necropolis? Snefru's son Nefermat and his wife Atet had 15 children, which demonstrates they did not die young and...
Lack of protection, eh?
Furthermore, the Meidum Pyramid's causeway, temple, and stele were added, along with the smooth casing stones, at its final stage of construction, and this was after the bent and red pyramid.
So it's you know, you might be wondering, like, how can they know that the Meidum causeway and temple was added after? How do they know? 4,000 years ago they were building. They've looked at the different types of limestone used. So they have E1, E2, and E3. That's just a type of limestone. By seeing that they used certain chips of limestone of E3 for this, they know that this came later.
The temple of the bent pyramid was likely constructed first, and originally it was a very simple arrangement. The 2 gigantic stelae flanked an offering table with the Hotep sign, and that was about it.
And so just so you know, the pyramids all had temples outside of them, smaller temples, where people could come and make their offerings, like he's saying.
Amazingly, the centerpiece of these temples, the offering table, is in fact reversed at the bent pyramid.
Okay.
At the Meidum pyramid, the offering table is oriented so that the offerings are received from the direction of the pyramid. At the bent pyramid temple, however, the Hotep sign is read as if the offerings are being received by the worshippers who are visiting. Whatever the reason for this distinction, it's a significant clue that the roles of the Meidum and bent pyramids were not the same.
Yeah, maybe similar, but not the same.
While the Meidum pyramid was likely constructed early in Snefru's reign, we know that this was not the case for Mastaba 17. The reason is that the superstructure of Mastaba 17 is made from limestone chips that came from the building of the pyramid itself.
Yeah, this is so cool. This is wait. It might be in a previous issue for Granite. Let me try to find it. Oh, yes. Here. So this is what you need to know about this pyramid.
The pyramid was constructed in 3 distinct stages. The first stage, named E1, consisted of a stepped pyramid 7 courses high. The next stage, E2, slightly expanded the pyramid to 8 courses in height. And finally, stage E3 transformed the stepped pyramid into a true angular pyramid of about 52.6 degrees, which is less than 1 degree different from the Great Pyramid at Giza. The final height.
And so what he said just now in the other video is that they know the Mastaba, the tomb that's right next to this pyramid, had to be constructed late because they used E3 type of stone. Not E1 or E2, but E3. So the tomb was built late into his reign.
Sometime later, other tiny mastabas crop up next to the Meidum Pyramid, but these were not contemporary to Snefru's reign. The only notable one, Mastaba 18, was actually built with the smashed remnants of pottery that was used in offerings at the Meidum Pyramid. It must have taken a long time for that much pottery to accumulate for such a purpose. In summary, in order for Mastaba 17 to not belong to Snefru, there needed to be an unknown prince higher in status than a vizier who never took a wife and never constructed a mastaba during his own lifetime that happened to die at the end of Snefru's reign, who was individually honored above everyone else in society with no trace of his name or rank ever found. The more evidence-based explanation is that Snefru was probably buried there, and this is why Mastaba 17 was so special.
And the argument against it goes, but the pyramid is a tomb, so you must bury the pharaoh in the pyramid. Djoser had different, I don't know if they ever found Djoser, but Snefru comes after Djoser in sort of the... Djoser builds the first pyramid, generation later, Snefru builds 3. And maybe the idea is that they wanted to be buried in the pyramid, but it's kind of scary, right? It's kind of scary to have to be the first person that gets buried in a pyramid. If everyone else gets buried in a sarcophagus in a mastaba and gets sent to the afterlife, if you're superstitious, right? What if you mess it up by not doing it the way it's supposed to be done? You're kind of changing the tradition.
But even with all this evidence aligning to Snefru being laid to rest in Mastaba 17, there is something about the story which deeply troubles me.
Okay.
When Petrie and Wainwright first entered the Mastaba chambers, they discovered that intruders had entered from the opposite direction in a conspicuous manner.
Ooh.
Wainwright writes, quote, "He knew exactly the position of the chamber, and tunneling from the south end for about 20 yards from the point nearest to the construction."
How? Literally how? Someone x-rayed through the wall and perfectly aligned themselves with the corridor.
He made straight for the end of the long north and south passage.
With the right
which he
elevation.
struck unerringly, and forcing out one...
Unerringly, without error. Yeah.
...stone, apparently by the means of a charcoal fire. However, the first violators into Mastaba 17 would likely have required knowledge of its design to be so accurate with their intrusion. They even chose to aim for...
Because they're not even digging, like, center, you know? And you're hitting the perfect elevation. Like, that's crazy.
Wainwright also believed Nefermat's Mastaba 16 was plundered before burial was completed, as its walls and floors were unbroken, with the entrance still entirely completed. As Nefermat's
the Mastaba 16 was plundered before the burial was completed, as its walls and floors were unbroken, with the entrance still sealed.
The defleshed skeleton of Nefermat was discovered, wrapped in a similar manner to the owner of Mastaba 17, whose bones were found lying inside the...
So this is the skeleton they found in Mastaba 17, potentially Snefru.
Granite sarcophagus. Mastaba 17 skeleton was also found with pieces of a wooden crook.
Ooh, they found a wooden crook. This is a important symbol.
A classic symbol reserved for Egyptian royalty. How could the richest and most powerful men of their time fall victim to an immediate desecration of their tombs? This question strikes at the very heart of how we evaluate ancient Egyptian society. The people in charge of protecting the dead were the very ones pillaging the crypt.
Nah, it's Game of Thrones, bro. As soon as someone in power dies, you swoop in and, you know, like, take everything. It makes sense. Let's say Snefru's like 10 most trusted men, lay him to rest there when he's dead, and then immediately just yoink everything. That's probably what happened with Mastaba 16 with Nefermat.
At the first opportunity. Was this a secretive operation at Meidum, or were the robbers themselves given permission by a new king? Kufu must have been planning for the Great Pyramid long before he arrived on the throne. Unlike any other pharaoh before him, he would spend his entire life seeing pyramids rise and the effect it had on the populace.
This is interesting, right? Looking up to his dad, Snefru that builds pyramids, people seem to love it because long after Snefru is dead, they take care of the pyramids, they repair the stones, you know, have temples with offerings, so many offerings that they can build another mastaba next to the pyramids. Like it's crazy the effect this had on people probably back then. When Kufu is growing up, he's probably thinking about, what am I going to build?
Ultimately, it would be the son Kufu that would decide his father's fate. Perhaps Mastaba 17 was the solution Kufu devised to appear reverent to his father, while making himself the first true sun god entombed within...
Ooh, wait, this is a fun argument, yeah, or a fun theory. Like, you can say, I want this to happen with my body when I die, but then once you're dead, how are you going to stop someone from just building you a mastaba and saying, I'm gonna be the first one in a pyramid? I swear, guys, this is what Snefru always wanted. He really wanted that mastaba. I'm being a generous king now to my dead father, and I'm gonna be the first one in a pyramid.
We may never know for sure if Snefru was the skeleton in Mastaba 17. It was destroyed in Britain during...
No! Because they can probably, like, what they've been able to do with skeletons, guys, is that they can look at teeth. You can find DNA in teeth nowadays. You are able to determine a lot of things about their genomes and stuff like that. That is a tragedy.
World War II. At minimum, the wooden mallet still in situ under the stone lid should be carbon dated to prove this tomb robbery is dated to the...
Oh, they can... Wow, yeah, they can date the lever that is holding up the lid.
Under the stone lid should be carbon dated
like old wood.
To prove this tomb robbery is dated to the 4th dynasty. What Mastaba 17 and the other Meidum tombs reveal is that the evolution of pyramids remains full of mystery with many unanswered questions. There was no rule about how to be buried. Each pharaoh would pursue their own method for securing the afterlife in the manner they saw fit. It was the ancient Egyptians themselves who told us that the Meidum pyramid belonged to Snefru. New Kingdom graffiti inside the pyramid's small temple gave us this connection.
Wow, yeah.
The temple lacks hieroglyphs, so how is Snefru remembered for it 1,000 years later? Snefru's reputation never faltered in ancient times. It was his son Kufu that became remembered as a tyrant. Both kings built enormous pyramids. This was not the deciding factor for their legacies. What do you think the best burial solution was?
Well, both
and
yes
maybe,
and no.
Just maybe, there is a 4th dynasty pharaoh still hiding in an unmarked location in the desert, waiting to be found. Thanks to everyone who watched this video to the end.
If they can find Khufu's tomb, that would be incredible. Guys,
please subscribe to the channel to see more of this content. Give a like or comment as you see fit. Remember to ask your friends if they take their history for granite.
Do go to the video itself. Watch more of History for Granite's videos. Incredible knowledge about pyramids, right? Incredible. It's so fun to learn from him and to, as you're watching, just think like, oh, why, how? And then he gets around to it. Anyway, guys, I think I'm gonna end stream. I've been streaming far longer than I intended to, but thank you all for watching today. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.